Hello everyone, my name is Alex Howe, and I'm today going to show you my enhancement tool called Blendspace by Tess. So I pretty much threw in this whole lesson plan that I've created with a team for another class. It's pretty much called A Stranger in Crimwell Village. I put it in here, Minecraft Education Edition, just to give an idea of where you'll actually be playing this particular lesson plan. So if you remember from the previous showcases, I showed a little tutorial on the world itself. I didn't put that in here. I had some weird issues compiling that. So I'm just going to run through basically the lesson plans, explaining the effectiveness of this enhancement, such as how it's shown and stuff like that. And pretty much just the handouts in general, and then the actual world file. So I don't have the MP4 version of that file, but I do have the world itself just for the sake of this showcase, pardon me. So we'll start off with the information packet here. So once I share this particular Blendspace file or lesson within this tool, you'll be able to look at it more in depth. But so this is pretty much like the general info lesson overview that I've created with a group called Rebuilding Cromwell Village. So it was recently struck by a comet, just for the sake of backstory. So you're supposed to help the townspeople rebuild the village and establish order. So throughout this world, you pretty much go through 5 different lessons, and within Blendspace they all are in their own separate little instances to where you can the file downloaded again. Alright, let's try not to do that. So let's see here. So yeah, we've established a little bit of learning objectives too within each lesson. It's more of a general approach to what you should be learning within each lesson. So giving that like a little quick read, and then there's pretty much the detailed versions of the lesson plans within the overview compared to the individual lesson plans. This one is actually more drawn out than I expected compared to the individual ones, but the purpose of the individual ones is to have pretty much a separate view of the lesson. So if you were to focus on lesson 1 for today, here's just lesson 1, and then so on and so forth for lesson 2, lesson 3, 3.2, and then 4 and 5. So in essence, lesson 1 is writing and establishing laws. So you pretty much go through the world, find the people you need to talk to, and then go repeat that at around 5 times. And we'll not go to the next slide because then I'll just download this file again. I don't know why Blendspace does that, but that's just what it is. So as people play this world, actually, I did get some feedback about how the player approaches the non-player characters, or NPCs for short. So you meet with one NPC, and he kind of sets you off to talk to a few different people. Well, a lot of different people that play this game actually have more of an explorer's mindset. They kind of want to see this world and what it has to offer. So they're not very factory production streamlined to where it's like they go from one thing to next to next to next. Sometimes they want to branch off and do stuff. Well, so to kind of address that problem, we created the separate lesson plan so that you know exactly who to talk to and who to meet up with, just in case if you do kind of venture off, you always have kind of like a Hearthstone moment where you can always like come back to the original steps. Like for this instance, for lesson 1, oh, it doesn't really say. That's awkward. So in lesson 2, you can go to this character called Alexander. Huh, funny, that's me. And you talk about how to build the jail and stuff like that. So he tells you the resources and stuff like that. So let's just say you wandered around and you just happened to meet up with Sarah for some reason. And so you're pretty much out of line, out of story, and out of the lesson, which is never a deal breaker. You can always just revert back to whichever lesson you happen to be on at the time. So that is one instance of the feedback I have from test reviews. So in terms of this actual tool, I really like Blendspace for how it organizes and compiles everything that I've done, and it kind of has a sequential feel to it. Like you can organize it to where it's pretty sequential. So each box, this is kind of like the first thing that I would imagine someone would look at. So you click on here, just a general overview, but somehow it's more detailed than the other lessons. So I find that a little interesting. So lesson 1, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, you kind of get this sense of progression in general. And then you'll actually get the McWorld file to open up within Minecraft Education Edition to actually play this. I'm very confident that this is the finalized file. I'm pretty sure everything for the most part works. I mean, we only did have about somewhere between 3 weeks to maybe 4 to make the world, so I'm sure not everything is perfect, but it's, for the most part, justifies the actual lessons you would go through. So if you ever want to play it, you can. Just, I don't know, direct message me or something like that. So these are the handouts, and let's see here. This is in general for grades 8 through 12, some mature level learning here. You can even go higher education, and I'm pretty sure they would have a blast with this, especially if they're in law or something like that, like legit law school or something like that, where they have to establish all these different things, but on a more entertaining side, while still having the benefit of learning. So, and connecting with UDL's principles, definitely the third column, the third one in general, where it discusses the representation. I really do appreciate Blendspace's way that you can actually add in multiple different things. Like you can link in their inherent resources, YouTube, Google's, Flickr. I'm not actually too familiar with Flickr. I think it's like something with film. Web page, I could totally insert my web page, stuff from Dropbox and your own space and settings and stuff like that. It's just a really neat tool, and the resources are just absolutely extensive. There's some templates that you can follow if you're on the general track for history, English, and stuff like that. They kind of give you a certain little scaffolding to create your own world in general for your lesson. So, and that's pretty much what I did here. And I would say, and I know this is pretty important, whether this was for advanced learners or for those that are kind of struggling, I can actually see this for both. I see this for both because the advanced learners, they could progress even more so with these handouts if they were to go through the game and complete lesson 1. And then if they wanted to do 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, they definitely can. For the ones that are struggling, this is actually something for them to have a physical print or a manifestation of this lesson plan to look over in case if they do happen to somehow fall behind. And especially the information packet here, which turns out to be more detailed than I expected. So if they were to have a segment to where they have homework and they were supposed to come out with writing and establishing the laws, so when you go up to that particular part in the game and you're supposed to write it on a board in the game, they can actually sit down, talk amongst their peers, and then write them in and have like a concrete understanding of how they would do this within life and all these other essential aspects to where they would use those fundamental skills. So, and you'll never get the excuse that my dog ate my homework or anything with Blendspace because it's all digital. You would have to go through the extremes to not access this. And especially when the teacher has printouts, and if you have a computer lab rotation space, you can't really dodge this lesson because it will just happen. I would hope that it would happen. That would be really, really neat. I may not teach it, but I would definitely make sure that the worlds and the lessons make sense and stuff like that if this was the case. So let me see here. I would definitely use this in the future. If I were an instructional designer, which I've kind of thought of for a master's in general, I've liked the educational game design approach. That's kind of more my thing, but developing lesson plans, while it's not my strong suit, I've definitely enjoyed collaborating with people and kind of giving a more game development based perspective on it to see if it actually delivers and it hits well and stuff and kind of resonates with the learners to where it's like, I've just played this game and then I'm able to apply it to this test and they don't even realize that they were getting educated. That's what I absolutely love to do. And I feel like this is kind of the closest example that I've had the opportunity to do so with this Minecraft world. Now granted, I don't know if you'll just happen to learn laws and just pop them off for a test or something like that. If you do, that's great. I'm happy for you. But I would definitely use this tool regardless, if I were a teacher or not in the future. I would definitely say what went well with the game is that this was a new perspective on how to learn. It's something where at first they didn't really take seriously, but once they actually got into it, they really enjoyed the visuals and all the things that were incorporated with the game. I would say the demo and how I introduced this world in the previous showcases where I actually went into the world, played for a little bit, just for the sake of context, is that it was so open and they couldn't really focus in on one thing because it was just that open. So in addressing that, the lessons, as I mentioned before, that were individualized, that's how we segmented the progression of this lesson, because we do have quite a bit, not just one lesson, but 5, and then so on and so forth. So yeah, if you ever want to play this world, you can definitely direct message me, email me, and other things. I would love to continuously get more feedback and see what I can improve and see if my team has the time to make more improvements. So yeah, that's all I have for today. Thank you for watching and listening. See you next time.